Hello and welcome everyone to this webinar. And thank you for joining. My name is Andre. I'm Calibrated Product Manager from Lumesca. I'm pleased to introduce our today's presenter, Nick Wilcox Brown, a wildlife photographer who is going to demystify the printer calibration process. To give you a full demonstration of printer calibration with the Color Checker Studio, Nick has prepared a pre-recorded video that we are going to play in a few moments. And afterwards, there will be a live Q&A session. So please stay with us until the end of today's webinar. We have also partnered up with PhotoSpeed, our reseller, who have prepared a special promotion for all of the participants. And we will share the full details of this promo at the end of the webinar. Hope you enjoy, and let's get started.
Good evening, everybody, or is that good morning? Thank you anyway for joining me. My name's Nick, and one of my missions in life is to get photographers printing again. Why? Because we all create these beautiful digital images. We show them off to each other on screen, on Instagram, on Facebook, other places. But how many people actually print now? Printing is a really important process. It makes your picture permanent. It makes it something that you, your family, can continue to enjoy on a daily basis over many years. Before we get started with screen calibration, it's worth talking about the Color Checker Studio. This clever little device works with the Calibrate Profiler software to calibrate monitors, projectors, cameras, scanners and printers, so a truly versatile little device. It comes with its own little cozy neoprene jumper, which serves to protect it, and also it has a weighted strap that suspends it effectively over monitors so it doesn't fall. Underneath, there's a little lens with a cover which keeps the dust out. For what we're actually going to be doing today, we're going to use it with the cover for the screen calibration, and then afterwards we'll remove this for measuring patches and for printer calibration. So this is the device as it is. It's very simple, connected with USB, and we've got this rotating collar which changes the function of the device from measuring ambient light, measuring projectors, the self-calibration function, and then the screen measuring function here. So straightforward to use, and let's get started. Firstly, we'll select the monitor itself, and we're actually going to use the advanced settings, not the basic. So select advanced, click next. This display has got a spectral type emission, so we'll stick with that one. We're going to go with photo. Now we're just going to go up here and make one small change. We're sticking with D65, which is 6500 Kelvin, the color temperature. We're going to make a slight change. The default is 120, that's the luminance level, candelas per meter squared. We're actually going to choose 100 because it gives a better match between display and print. Once we've set that, we can go to next. We'll stick with 2.2 gamma, which is correct, and next again. We'll ignore those and next again. We're going to stick with the standard 118 patches. That's plenty enough. If you want a more thorough calibration, you can of course use 211 or 461, but for this purposes we're going to use 118, and we'll go to next, and we're ready to move forwards. Start measurement. The Color Checker Studio needs to self-calibrate. Now, by the indication of the diagram here, the rotating dial is in the correct position for calibration. So if I simply press the buttons on the side with the three raised dots, then the device will calibrate itself before we can use it to actually measure the screen. So that's complete. We now just need to hold it gently and we need to rotate the dial to the correct position for measurement. Once that's been rotated, we get the message that the device is calibrated and we can now use it to measure the screen. So we press next, and this is where we have to hang the device at the center of the display. Now we're using the lead-weighted strap to counterbalance, and we're going to actually tilt the screen backwards a little bit. We can then press next again. Now this is the critical bit. We need to get the luminance correct. In fact, as you can see, it is set correctly. Important to mention, on a Mac, you can simply use keyboard to decrease or increase the luminance level. On a PC, you'll very often actually have to use the controls on the base or the rear of the screen. Once we press next again, the device starts to measure. What is essentially happening here is that the software is firing out color patches of a known value and then measuring back the read from the device. And it's the offset between the measured and the known value that creates a profile or a map for the individual device, in this case the screen. We'll do similar with the printer in a moment. The measurement process is finished, and it's just finishing off with the blacks and white levels. Now we've done this, we can remove the device from the display. So we take that off gently and we'll pop it down there, and we'll go next. And next again. And there we are, we've got a profile. We've got the iMac and we've got a date, and we'll set it for a 2-week, in fact a 4-week reminder. And we'll save profile and schedule the reminder. Now we have got the option to look at before and after, but as this screen is pretty much calibrated on a regular basis, it's really not going to change very much, but it's useful to do it. And we'll return to home. Right, so we've now completed the process of calibrating the screen. Very straightforward, but an important one to do. And it's worth remeasuring the screen or recalibrating the screen every 3 to 4 weeks. There are facilities within the software. We can actually go in, we can check the profiles we've got. Rather than doing a complete reprofile, there are simple ways to do it within the utilities folder. But for the moment, we'll just stick with what we've got because I'm very happy with it. Now it's time to move on, and we're going to calibrate the printer. Now I say we're going to calibrate the printer. We will be using the Canon Pigment printer. It's a 310 model, it's the latest, and important to also say pigment. Pigment is long-lasting. Dye-based printers have got prints that will last something between a couple of years and 20 years, but they will fade. Pigment prints will last almost forever. And one of the first things we're going to do today is we're actually going to profile some rather lovely paper by Canson called Barita Photographique 2. Photographique 2 is very much a new kid on the block, and it's got a lovely sort of soft luster feel to it. Luster or a soft gloss, probably a soft gloss is a better description. And we've got a printer set up here, as you can see. The studio device is active, so all we need to do is go to next, and we're going to go and create a profile up here. Next. And what we'll do is we'll actually print this target that you can see on screen. We're going to use the Canon Pro 310 series. We're going to use paper A4. We are going to give this a name. And this profile is going to be described by its brand. So it's Canson Photographique. Now, because there are some issues with turning off color management on a Mac. Rather than printing this target, so this is the target we're going to measure to create a profile, we're actually going to export the target. So I'm going to export the target. I'm going to export it to my desktop for ease of use. And I'm just going to do that. And it's now created a TIFF file, as you can see up here. What I'm now going to do is I'm going to go into the Canon Professional Print and Layout software. This is available for both Mac and PC, and it gives me the options to avoid color management. So I'm going to go and drag this TIFF file into the window. There you can see it is. It's there. Now I am going to select the media type, which is on this one is Premium Fine Art Smooth. In fact, what I want for this one is actually I want a Barita photo paper. That will just affect the amount of ink that's laid down. What I'm going to do then is, to avoid the layout, I'm simply going to go down and I'm going to choose no IC, not ICC, not driver, no color correction is what I wanted. I do not want these patches touched in terms of color. So once that's been done, I will simply go to print and we'll click OK on that one, and it's going to set up a print job. Once these have been printed, we can then of course leave them for a specific drying time. The software actually recommends about 5 minutes drying time, whereas the recommended dry time is in fact about 30 minutes or more. Just ignore that one. And we're done. So the printer is printing the test chart off, and it'll do one moment. While we're waiting for that to happen, we can prepare the Color Checker Studio device. Now, at the moment, it's encased in a nice neoprene case. This has got the weighted, lead-weighted strap as well. We're not going to be wanting that for the measuring of these patches. So I'm going to very carefully take this out, carefully not to drop it, hold that there, and also, again, careful not to press this recessed area here with the 3 raised dots on it. There we are, that's all ready for use. We'll put this one out of the way for a future screen calibration. The recommended time for printed patch drying is 5 minutes. In fact, you'll get far better results, especially with heavyweight fine art paper, if you can wait for 30 minutes. With the patches printed, we now have to calibrate the device before we can measure the chart. We have to follow the instructions on screen, very straightforward. We'll start on row 1 and we'll move along the strip right to the left. If we get a successful calibration, we'll then move along the next strip and so on until the sheet's completed. We'll position the device on the sheet just off the edge of the paper. I now hold the button, this is the recessed button with the 3 dots, hold it down and push the device slowly along the sheet and to the edge. And as we complete the row, you can see the next row illuminates in yellow. Let's just press the button again and move along the second row. And we have a second row complete. Again, holding the button down as I push, keep it straight. And we have completed. And if I now press next, what happens is that the software will actually calculate a new set of patches for the second sheet based on the results of the measurement of that first sheet. So the second profile is ready, and all we need to do is print this. So we'll repeat the process. We'll export the target as we're on a Mac and import this into the Canon software and then print it in that way to avoid the color management issues. Okay, so the drying time is up and the print is ready to measure. We'll just click the OK on screen and we're back with a familiar dialog with the highlighted yellow squares, and we'll just measure the squares as previously. So again, off the edge of the paper, start, hold the button in with the 3 raised dots and just move across slowly and off the edge of the paper. And it works like that, it works well. And again, second row. So with a little bit of practice, you can actually do this extremely quickly. Fourth row. And final row. So we'll pop the device out of the way. We'll press next. And now we're at a profile save dialog. Very straightforward. And so it's 310 series Canson photographique, and then the date and the version of profile type. So measure and complete, press save. So we've created a profile for this paper, the Photographique 2, the Burita based paper. Now, just to clarify once again, we've created a profile. The profile represents the Pro 310 series printer with standard pigment ink, and we've used the standard setting, not the high quality setting, for this. It's printed the patches, 2 sets of patches, the second based on the first, measured those and created a profile. We can now use that profile for printing of other images. And in a moment we'll go on and print one of my favourite bear images on screen, and we'll print using the profile we've just created. Before we start printing, I think it's important to talk about the choice of papers. I've got a couple today, both by Canson Infinity. This one is my long-term favourite. It's Somerset Enhanced Satin, and it's traditional mould-made paper. It's got texture, not too much texture, but just enough, and it works beautifully when framed. Another one I like is the Burita paper. This one has got a lovely sort of silk finish to it. It's towards gloss, but it's not. The reason I'm using it today is it's got a wonderful colour gamut, so it reproduces bright and saturated colours, dark colours really effectively, and makes fantastic prints. And we'll bring up Lightroom, and there's Lightroom, and in fact this is the image I'd like to print. Now, I may have mentioned, but let's just reiterate, I like to use a white canvas for my images. Default in Lightroom is actually medium grey, and it makes the image look impressive. Some people actually prefer a dark grey or even a black, and it makes the image look lovely. But when you're printing, it's really not that easy to judge the colour and the luminance levels against black. So I choose to use white. Now this image is actually ready for printing, and in a moment we'll go through the print dialog. But let's just quickly mention something else. Within Lightroom Classic there is a wonderful feature called Lights Out. If I press the L key, as you can see, it fades the background. If I press it a second time, we've now got that image purely on white. It means you've got a lovely visual comparison with the image against the white background, so you can judge the luminance levels. If we press that again, let me just raise one more thing. We've got a soft proofing setting within Lightroom here. If we go up to Tools, View, we've got soft proofing here, Show Proof S, or we can use this little icon here, soft proofing. Now, soft proofing is not quite so straightforward. Let's just explain this. Here's the profile we've got. We've chosen that, we've just created that profile, and we can either choose relative or perceptual. For this picture, I'm going to use a relative colorimetric. That's complicated. Let's just ignore that one for this moment. It's very complex about color distribution. We'll stick with a relative colorimetric perception, and we're actually pressing that little button up here to simulate the paper and ink. So that is really how our image should look when it comes out from the printer. Okay, So on the screen, I'm going to go up to the menu and I'm going to come down here and I want to plug in extras. If the printer's been correctly installed, as this one has, we come to plug-in extras and we've got a Canon Professional print and layout software. I'll click that. And there is the software up on screen. Now we can, if we wish, make this full screen, just to make it a bit easier. Now this image is not far off square, it's a 4:5 ratio. I don't actually want it too big. In fact, I think I'll make that, let's try 175 millimeters. That just makes it a bit bigger, but it's still got a nice board around it. I've maintained the aspect ratio, of course. Okay, so color settings and color management. Now we're going to go into the dialog here. We're going to use an ICC profile. Within this plugin, it's important to choose use an ICC profile. In some standardized print dialogues within applications, it's actually color management wants turning off and then something else manages it. But with this dialog Canon print profile, we're going to use this, and we've got photographic 2. There we are, and we're going to use the relative colorimetric rendering, and we've got soft proofing on here as well, so we can see roughly how that's going to look. That should all be ready. The printer has been set up. We've got another sheet of paper while we're waiting, so if I just print here, ignore that particular warning about some particular margins because it's irrelevant. Start printing. And we're just a final cross-check. Paper size A4. We're using the Premium Fine Art Smooth. No, we're not. Let's actually just cancel. We're going to go back because we made a mistake. It's very important. Choose the type of paper. And what I did just a moment ago was to ignore that bit, which is so stupid. Ignore the layout. We want the print settings. We want a photo paper and we want a burrito type photo paper there. Perfect. Now we'll go print. We've seen that one before. And there we are. We're starting to print. So we'll just leave that to carry on and we'll wait to see what happens. And here we have what looks to be a very lovely print. There we are. There's a print. And I'll tell you what, that looks very, very close indeed to what I'm seeing on screen, which is exactly what I want. Can that be seen clearly to the camera? Now, if I put it under my favourite little Graphilight, does that show better? The Graphilight is a wonderful little device. It's only about 80 quid, and it just gives you really accurate colour. Now, in this room, it's slightly lost because I've got movie lights everywhere to make the room look nice and bright, but it's perfect for evaluating a print. Let me just turn that around. Now, bearing in mind that I really should, it may not be quite perfect for the camera, but for me that is almost absolutely spot on to the screen image. So it's proof of the pudding, as they say. I'm delighted with that print. While I have this fantastic pigment-based printer here, huge advantage for longevity over traditional dye-based printers, I'm taking this opportunity to print a few of my favourite images. This is one of my bee eater images shot in May last year in central Spain. One of the beauties of this particular printer from Canon, the Pro 310, is that it has a red cartridge, which means that I can get really beautiful reproduction of the red eyes and the super saturated orange feathering on the napes and the wings of these birds. Now, I'm not sure how well this will show on camera. I've turned the ambient lighting in the room down a little bit, and I'm relying on my little Graphilight to check these prints. This is one of my favourite bee eater images taken in Spain, and this was printed without the calibration. So when I first got the printer, I printed this image without calibrating the paper. I just used generic profiles. Post calibration and optimized profiles, I've used the same picture and I've done this. Now, does it show very clearly on camera? There is quite a big difference in the saturation of the reds and the eyes. The overall print does look much nicer on this one here. As I say, it's maybe not that easy to see on camera, but in the flesh it's a big difference, and that one would be a definite reject. So this is my Beater, and it's been printed on the Canon 310 printer, the pigment printer, and I'm using my new favourite, the Canson Infinity Photographique 2. So the picture I'm outputting here is my Venice picture, and I'm printing it on Canson's Somerset Enhanced. That's the slightly textured fine art paper with a lovely matte look to it. Now what I love about this print, it's made on Somerset Enhanced paper. It's mould made paper. That's a very traditional process. It's made in Somerset, just down the road from here, and in fact I was very fortunate to make a film for Canson Infinity last year. But this paper has got a beautiful texture to it. It's a really pure white, but it's got a very lovely texture to it. It's not got the biggest colour gamut in terms of the reproduction of tones, because it's a matte paper, but it's beautiful and the texture is just gorgeous. And what I really like is how close the result is between the paper here, best looked at under this light, the paper and the actual print on screen. I'm soft proofing this print on screen, and I'm just so happy. The results are very close. So this is exactly what I'm trying to tell people. You can make life so much easier for yourself by calibrating both your screen and your printer, and the results are just fantastic. Okay, so what can I say? We started off by using the Color Checker Studio device to calibrate our screen. That worked extremely well. We got a nice result with very minimal work. We've then printed out these two colour charts for the Photographique to the Canson Infinity Photographique 2 paper. Very simple process to calibrate, to measure these, to create the profile. We've then taken the profile, we've used it to create this print. Now, we haven't actually given this the correct drying time. It's had a moment or two, and it really should have had a minimum of 5 minutes. But from my viewing, looking at the print against the screen, we've got a 95% match, if not closer. So I'm very delighted with the results. It's a very straightforward process. Everything works together, and it really is self-explanatory. The instructions on screen from the software are excellent, and the results, as you can see, are truly brilliant. Very happy with this. Now, there's a couple more bits and pieces we will go through. There are some extra features within the software that are worth highlighting. Within the Calibrate Profiler software, we've gone through the monitor, we've gone through the printer. We've also got, as you can see, options of calibrating projectors and cameras and scanners. We've also got utilities. Now, it's worth taking a look at the utilities. I'll just click on this one here. Now, this gives us opportunity to do quick checks on monitors. We've got opportunities to do monitor validation, monitor uniformity. As you can see, all these little options. We've got presets. We're able to create presets, but most usefully to me is the profile manager. If I click in here, you can see I've got quite a collection of profiles I've collected. Some of these over the last few days, well, I've been testing. And if I wish to choose one of these, for instance this one, it gives me all the information about this profile. It's quite a useful little tool. And should I wish to, I can go through and prune my collection of profiles or delete some. So this one is not usable, not useful, and so I will simply delete it. Plenty of opportunities there to manage profiles. Thank you everybody for joining me today. I hope this has provided you with some useful experiences, something that's given you a little bit of insight, something that's made life just that little bit easier. Printing is a complicated process. It requires everything to be lined up in the correct sequence. Most importantly, calibration will ensure that there's far less wasted time and wasted materials, and much more satisfaction from the whole process. From a practical point of view, this is the end of the session. If you'd like to download a summary PDF from my website, please do so. I'd ask you to sign up for my mailing list. It's a very small one. It only circulates about 4 or 5 times a year, and there's always little tips and tricks on there, useful information. Please take a look at the sponsors page. Canon have kindly lent us a printer. We've got some fantastic paper from Canson Infinity, and of course it's all about Calibrate and their wonderful little colour checker studio device, which is so useful. Thank you everybody. Take care.
Great. Wow, it's been a great video, Nick. Well done. Hope everybody enjoyed the video as well. We will start taking the questions. We've had quite a few very interesting questions. Let's see.
That's an interesting one.
So, can you say a little bit more about the lights that you've been using, the Graphite, Nick?
Yes, indeed. Can you see me okay?
Yes.
Yeah, okay, great. So the Graphite is a wonderful little device. It's got a D65 color temperature, and it's got 3 levels of brightness. I haven't measured the brightness, but it's when I haven't got movie lights on, as I've had for the recording, it's a really nice way of seeing prints accurately. You just know that the color quality is or the light quality is correct, so you're getting a true and accurate view. One point I noticed during the chat a moment ago, people were saying, "Oh, the screen images look dark versus the light." Bearing in mind that I've got cameras at strange angles, if you actually look at it with the human eye versus print versus screen, the colours are very close indeed, which is why I was so pleased with everything.
Great, thank you. We have a question from Dave. Do you need to do a print profile if you have the paper profile for the printer you have?
Depends on how much accuracy you want. If you've got a paper profile for your existing paper, then you should be fine. But you do need to know under what conditions that profile was made. So was it high quality or standard settings, for instance? I know that varies a little bit between different printers. This printer I've been using here, actually, I'm getting very beautiful results on standard quality, and it's a lot quicker to work that way. I know when I had an Epson printer in the past, there was quite a big difference between standard and fine or high quality. So you really need to know what the profile's been made with. But you know, it's a much closer match than just using a general profile. So it's a good start point for sure. It's really when you're starting to get to the nth degree of perfection that you really want to make very, very fine custom profiles.
Thanks. We have a follow-up question. Why not use Canson own ICC profiles? So I think that's a very good question.
Why not? They make excellent profiles. I like to do I've been making my own I've been calibrating screens for 25 years or more, and I've been calibrating printers for probably 20. So It's my preferred way of working, but it doesn't have to be everybody's.
Thanks. Question from Debbie. I have 2 HP monitors. Will this work with them, and would the monitors need to be calibrated separately?
You need to, it's a tricky one on PCs actually. You do need to calibrate them separately. You also need to know that your graphics card will support independent calibration. Going back a few years, I had a situation where I had 2 monitors on a Dell device, and I would calibrate one and it would throw the other one out, and it just went backwards and forwards. And the card was supposed to support your calibration. I ended up putting a second graphics card in there to sort the problem out. So it's a question you maybe need to ask of HP or of your PC supplier. Max, sorry, just to finish the question off, on a Mac there is independent calibration of different devices. Not saying they're better, it's just different.
Yeah, it really depends on the graphics card, doesn't it?
Yeah.
Best advice would be to just try calibrating both.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yes. So we also have a question from Keith. Can this be used on Epson printers?
It can certainly be used on Epson printers. There's nothing wrong with Epson printers at all. They're brilliant. This was the device I've got. I mean, I've got actually a cheap little Canon, which I use for day-to-day stuff. I don't have an A3 Plus of my own at the moment. Previously had a 24-inch printer, but that was expensive to keep running. So yeah, it'll work perfectly with Epson printers, with HP printers, whatever you like to use it with.
Question from Dominic. Do printers also need to be recalibrated regularly when using the same paper and ink?
No. Once you've got a standardized setup, and assuming you're going to continue using the same manufacturer's ink, once you've got that profile created, you'll be fine. Just keep the settings the same.
Thank you. Question from John. I have a calibrated ColorMonkey calibration tool. Can I use Color Checker Studio software with this? I'm happy to answer this, John.
Yes, you do that.
So yes, it is possible. If you do have an older X-Rite or ColorMonkey device, such as the ColorMonkey Photo or i1 Studio, or let's say X-Rite i1 Display Pro, these devices can be used with the latest Calibrate Profiler software, but there is a small fee to pay, and you can upgrade your existing X-Rite or ColorMonkey device within the software. So just download the software for free, plug in your legacy device, and it will. So the software will ask you whether or not you'd like to upgrade. So yes, it is possible. Question from Paul. When profiling a wide gamut monitor, XDR on or off?
Yep. So HDR is, Paul, it's not quite so straightforward. You almost need to have 2 separate profiles. Normally my laptop is profiled and used as an HDR monitor. I do all my social media stuff goes out as HDR. In fact, when I do presentations at events and camera clubs and all sorts of places, I actually project my images as HDR because they look much nicer. But if you want to be printing, then you need to actually calibrate to, so shall we say, to print settings, because otherwise it just doesn't really work. There's too much discrepancy between the screen and the print. So it's not possibly the answer you want, but that's the honest answer, because that's what I have to do myself.
Yeah, and for HDR screens, we have 2 separate devices that are sort of aimed at screen calibration. The Display Pro HL and display Plus HL. So the Plus HL device is HDR ready, but please be aware that the current software is currently not. But please stay tuned. We'll be sharing more news for HDR specifically.
Yeah.
Question from Thomas. Please explain black point compensation tick box option in brackets ticked.
Basic answer, just leave black point compensation on. It's important to the way the things get mapped, so leave it on and just, yeah.
Thanks. Question from Hogan. What luminance is the viewing light set to?
That's a very good, the Graphite.
Yes, I believe
Yeah,
so, yes.
that's a very good question, and possibly you may not know that answer better than me, Andre.
Yeah.
So
yes, so the Graphite starlight has 3 settings of color temperature. Store light, daylight, and home light. And each of those settings has 3 sort of intensities. There is no setting, so you can't really dial a specific luminance on the viewing light. It's not a full sort of light box or viewing light, a viewing box. So it's more of an, if you like, an entry level into control light. Yeah.
So just if I may just sort of fill in there, people questioning the, as I say earlier, the difference between screen and light. I had the because I've got 2 big movie lights in here. I had the Graphite set to maximum luminance, so you could actually see it was there, because otherwise it was just not really visible. And people said, "What's that sitting on the desk?" So it was set to a maximum. That's maybe not the optimum for viewing prints, but it was an optimum to show it all off on the video. But that did mean that by reference, the screen probably looks slightly darker, but that's obviously you've got a camera with one fixed exposure limit. So that's probably why, but to the eye, it looks fine. It's just effects for cameras.
Question from Mark. Can I use my existing X-Rite i1 display unit to get some way of getting consistent printing? £500 spend on the studio device needs a lot of justification, but paper is expensive enough to get some weight justification. So initial part of the question, whether or not you can use a colorimeter device to get consistent printing?
It can help you, but it can certainly help you by getting your display correctly set up, and that's actually a very big part of this. If the budget's too tight and you don't want to spend that 500 on the Color Checker Studio, which I understand, get your screen set up correctly. That will make a big difference. Try using the built-in profiles, or even get some profiles made by Photospeed or one of the other companies that provides them, and you know, it's slowly and see how that works. It's you know, it doesn't have to be done all at once.
Yeah, I would add as well that if you don't print at home, if you send your images to a lab, please calibrate your screen.
Yes.
You'll save a lot of frustration down the line. So in this case, obviously, using a colorimeter is a must. So yes.
Yeah. One of the things I would add to that is also, you'll be surprised how dark 100 CDM or 120 CDM is the setting on the software, but the recommended setting is 100. How dark 100 CDM is. My iMac will run at 500 and 600 CDM. That's the luminance values. And so when you actually bring that down to that 100, you go, oh, and it does make a big difference to the way the image is perceived. And of course, when you're then getting stuff sent away to labs, it's very easy to send stuff that's too dark, too bright. Do you know what I mean? It's a really useful thing to get the screen in hand, and it will help your lab bill. I think is probably a good simple way to start with.
Sure. Question from Ian. You said monitor profiles should be repeated every 3 to 4 weeks. What about the printer profiles?
Right, so monitor profiles every 3 to 4 weeks. Printer profile, and to be fair, that can be stretched out. In the days of old-fashioned displays, cathode ray tubes, sometimes I would actually be calibrating twice a day when I was doing color critical work for advertising clients, because the monitors drifted that quickly. With LCDs, 3 to 4 weeks is a good start point, but it's not critical. Printers, once you've got your paper and printer combination set up, and as I say, I think I mentioned earlier, and you're continuing to use proper manufacturer's ink, you shouldn't have to just recalibrate it should just work.
Question from Michael. Can I calibrate my printer with my Display Pro HL?
No, you can't. The Display Pro HL is a brilliant device. I've got the Display Plus HL, and it's a fantastic device for calibrating monitors, but it can't actually measure. It can't measure reflectance from prints and such like. That's where the Color Checker Studio comes in.
Yeah, the Color Checker Studio is a spectrophotometer. So as Nick mentioned,
never remember those names.
Yeah, it measures reflected light off your paper as well as emitted light from your screen. So it does both. Another question from Keith. What is the latest version of the Calibrate software that is compatible with ColorMonkey Photo? If you don't mind, I'll answer that. So that's Calibrate Profiler version 3. The latest iteration is 3.0.4. So yeah, just download the latest version from the Calibrate website, and that software is compatible with the ColorMonkey Photo. Question from Neville. Please comment on the use of HDR monitors when printing.
HDR monitors work perfectly well when printing. My own laptop is HDR and I use it constantly. I think I mentioned this earlier on. What you have to do though is change the calibration settings for print. It's a very different world. Print is a very different world to outputting HDR images for social media, websites and the like. So typically HDR, you'll actually let the monitor get to its maximum luminance of typically around 1600 CDM, 1600 nits at this moment. Whereas of course for printing, we want to be sitting down at 100 CDM. So it's a very different world, but it works perfectly well.
Yeah, with for printing, essentially you simulating the look of the paper on your screen. So obviously,
I should have added that. Yeah.
Paper isn't going to be as bright as brightest screen out there.
I think the other thing is also, of course, when you're talking of ink and paper, you're talking of an additive process. I mean, if you literally keep throwing ink on a piece of paper, you'll end up with black. Whereas if you keep throwing red, green and blue together on a screen, you actually end up with white. So yes, sorry, I'm saying additive and subtract. I'm mixing additive and subtractive, but you know what I'm trying to say. It's a complete reverse process in a sense, so it's very different. Did we have a pre-asked question somewhere, Andre? There was one about CMYK, I remember.
CMYK, let me have a look.
I think that's on our chat.
Yes.
I can't remember the details now, but I did look at it.
So it's about swapping from RGB to CMYK for printing.
That was it, yeah. So somebody asked in advance, so actually sent a question in advance, which was good of them, saying guidance on swapping from RGB to CMYK. If you are sending pictures to a printer, in other words, a desktop printer as we're doing here, then I would suggest that you actually stick with an RGB image. By converting it to CMYK, you're actually restricting the color gamut significantly, the range of colors significantly before you even get to the printer. So don't do it. Stick with RGB, and then let the printer do the conversion. Bearing in mind that I'm not quite sure of the Epson parameters at the moment, but this Canon printer has actually got a red ink in it, which is obviously not CMYK. So it's got red ink, it's got light greys, and it's got all sorts of clever colors in there. So let the printer do the RGB to CMYK conversion. If you're, I suppose I should follow up and say, if you want to send images to a printer, as in a book printer, then by all means you can do your own CMYK conversion. Make sure the black point compensation is set up. But sometimes, depending on your printer, sometimes printers are far more expert than any of us photographers. I learned that lesson many, many years ago in London. I had somebody do some CMYK conversions, and it wouldn't be too much to say they blew me away. They were unbelievably good, and they were doing all sorts of very clever things with ink levels, and well beyond the shall we say, well beyond the level of Photoshop. So CMYK conversion can be very complex indeed.
Yeah, so if printing at home, it's typically RGB process. Yeah. So another question from Dave. Do you need to do a print profile if you have the paper profile for the printer you have?
No. If you've got a paper profile for your printer, and it's a reliable and good profile, and you get what you see on screen is what you get out of the printer, you have no need to do your own profile. Very often the wild card is making sure your screen's set up and calibrated correctly first, and then you should be absolutely fine.
Couple more questions. A question from Terry: is profiling specifically for black and white images different to profiling color?
No, it's not. They are the same thing. But what I would say is that some printers have got more of a lean towards black and white. They've got a matte black, they've got a light grey, as this one has. I think Epson have got similar as well. So no, there should be no difference. Somebody else actually asked me the other day about toning or getting sepia prints. I've never particularly liked sepia for some reason. That's just me. But I used to in the darkroom I'll show you this in a moment. In the darkroom, I used to do a lot of black and white printing many years ago. Well, so many years ago, and I used to do a lot of selenium toning, as recommended by Ansel Adams, which gives you print longevity. And they used to have a lovely purple color. Can you see that?
Yes. That
is my representation of the selenium toning I used to do on black and white prints many years ago. So it's got, I mean, selenium toning varies in color slightly depending on how long you tone for. I used to tone for about 30 minutes or something, and my prints used to get a lovely slightly deep purplish hue, and that print is as close as I can get to those original photographic prints. And I've just treated that as not as a black and white, but I've treated that as a color print. You can sometimes get color casts if you go to black and white, so in that case it may be better to set the printer to black and white only. But I would say that profile as normal for a color image.
Thanks. Question about MacBook profiling from Mike. I use a MacBook Pro. Should I turn off True Tone before calibration?
Yes.
Turn off any enhancements as whatever possible. I know that.
Yeah, I'm sorry. We're talking over each other.
Go on, Nick. Sorry.
I was going to say True Tone is changing the color of the screen, so absolutely turn it off. The other thing is also, and I should have mentioned this somewhere in the presentation, is turn off auto brightness control, so the screen is automatically changing luminance. This would be true of Mac and PC because I know both devices can do it. Somewhere in my Prezzo, you did see me changing the screen luminance by just moving the key, using the keyboard. So my trick for getting the luminance correct is I actually got the profiler on the device. I will then click the keyboard up to the maximum luminance, and then I will just keep clicking down, counting how many clicks down until I've got the correct 120 CDM, 100 CDM usually. It's usually on the MacBook Pro, I think it's about 7 or 8, but on the iMac the other day it was 11 clicks down. There's another reason for doing it like that, in the sense that sometimes if I'm working out and about, I'm on location taking pictures for clients and things, I need the luminance just simply so I can see what's on the screen. So I'll click it up to maximum. But if I know roughly the number to click down, when I come back into the studio to do some printing, it's just a case of, okay, 10 clicks down, 7 clicks down, whatever it may be at the time. And I know I'm pretty much in the right region before I actually use the device. It saves constant reprofiling.
Great tip.
Talking of tips, Andre, can I just, I did mention within the presentation, but I think it really is useful to mention. It's Photoshop, it's Lightroom, it's other software as well. If you're printing a lot, if you've got some way of setting the canvas color to pure white, it makes a really big difference when you can see your images, because you're going to print on white paper. If you can see your images against pure white, whether your screen is fully calibrated or not, it just makes it so much easier to get the luminance levels correct for the image itself.
Do we have more questions?
I just flick myself over. I'm going to flick myself over from that to this. I just wanted to show this to people who might find it interesting. Oops, let's make it go slowly. If you're looking for questions, Andre, if I just explain what this is. Mm-hmm. This is a specialist piece of software I've used for years. It's called ColorThink, and I use it for mapping profiles. And what we've got here rotating is 2 color profiles. We've actually got the burrito paper, which is the mesh. The burrito is the sort of semi-luster paper, or the luster paper. And then the inner, the more solid set of colors is the fine art Somerset paper. So you can see how different the color gamuts are in the low levels. At the high levels, there's not so much difference, but at the lower luminance levels, because the matte paper absorbs the ink, you can see the big difference in the color gamuts of the 2 printers. Sorry, 2 papers. It's literally a profile comparison, if that's interesting to people. I've just realised. I'm sorry, I didn't realise. I didn't flick the screen over. There we are. I'm so sorry.
Oh,
there.
Yes.
It's all right. I've got a little device to switch screens, so apologies for that. So we've got the bigger profile is the burrito coated paper, and then the smaller one is the fine art, the Somerset enhanced fine art paper.
So you can basically see how different media represents color, essentially.
Yeah.
So
this software is a little bit end of life. I mean, I've had it for probably 15 years. It's fantastic software. You can actually put a print in there and plot a print against a color gamut of the profile you're printing it on. So it's really nerdy, but it's quite fascinating, and it's been very useful to me for certain projects I've done. Okay, let's go. Let's go to something else. Let's go to a pretty picture.
Yeah. Question about BenQ screen from Mark. I have calibrated my BenQ screen to 100% of RGB and brightness, and have had my papers profile from PhotoSpeed and have ICC profiles for each. I'm still not happy with my screen and print accuracy. What should be my next course of action to get my prints looking like screen images? Thanks, Mark.
So Mark, can I just question, I guess, I can't see the chat, I'm afraid. I would question when you say calibrate to 100% of RGB, of Adobe RGB or whatever, sRGB or whatever it was. When you say what are you setting? I mean, you need to set that luminance level of 100 or 120 CDM, preferably 100 CDM.
Exactly.
That's the critical one to get right. You also want that D65, so 6500 Kelvin, that's also critical. And you need the 2.2 gamma, which is basically the gamma for sRGB. I think somewhere I said if you're doing video, it's 2.4, and there's all sorts of nerdy things on gamma, but basically 2.2 is the way to start out. It's the right place to be. If you get that right in the first place, that screen is not going to be very bright. And then it's a case of getting a lab print made, perhaps, of one of your pictures and just doing the comparison. But they should be pretty close.
Yeah, also certain BenQ models allow hardware calibration.
Okay, yeah.
If it's
right.
If it's an SW screen, BenQ SW screen, it can be hardware calibrated also using the Color Checker Studio device, and that gives you even better results and better match to your printer. Question from Philip. I have the X-Rite Owen Studio, which looks like the same piece of hardware. Can I download and use the software that I have seen being used today? To answer this, yes, it is possible. You would just need to upgrade your iOne Studio device with there is an upgrade fee, but it's absolutely possible to use the legacy iOne Studio device with the latest Calibrate software. So, as there are no more questions, I'd like to mention that, as I mentioned before, we've partnered up with PhotoSpeed, and they have prepared a special promo code that you can use on their website. Can we put this on the screen? Yes, you can see it on the screen here. So it's 20% off all the Calibra products on the PhotoSpeed website until the 1st of Feb. They have also prepared a time-limited special offer for today's participants, which is the Color Checker Studio device with a free Graphite. So that's a great combo for everybody printing at home. And I would also encourage everybody to follow to sign up to Nick's mailing list, and you'll get a handy PDF with some useful tips. So many thanks for all the questions. Many thanks for your time. Thank you, Nick, as well. It's been very useful, a very good webinar. And thanks, everybody. Have a good evening, and see you again soon.
Thank you for joining us.
Thanks for joining. Thank you.